Are you struggling with how to properly part your naturally curly hair and get volume and lift at the root? Well, I'm going to show you 4 easy ways to part your curly hair to get more lift and volume. This is especially going to be beneficial if you have low density hair and you struggle with scalp covering, cowlicks, or just overall getting fullness and volume at the root. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Gina and I love making videos about naturally curly hair, really simplifying things for beginners with step-by-step tutorials and instruction, problem solving with curls, and helping you achieve healthy hair. So I'm starting off with freshly washed hair. I've already deep conditioned, done all the wash day stuff. If you want to see what I use on my hair for shampooing and treatments and deep conditioners, I did share that over on my Instagram, so I will save that to my story highlights if you're interested. So I'm just applying some water to my hair and I'm going to go ahead and apply my products. I think it's best to focus on parting your hair when your hair is wet because it can be hard with curls to kind of reposition the hair because we have gel in our hair and stuff. Once it's already dry, it kind of gets set into place. So I personally like to do my styling and parting when my hair is wet with products. So I'm first going to use a curl cream and then a gel. So I'm just gonna get my products in my hair and then we'll work on styling. I'm just gonna use this Bounce Curl Avocado and Rose Oil Clump and Define Cream. It's been a while since I used Bounce Curl products. I do have a 10% off code for them. I can leave that down below. Really great stuff. I just haven't used them for a while. I've been just trying other things lately, but I always love going back to this cream. So I personally like to style my hair in the upright position instead of upside down, and that gives you way more control over the way that your hair is going to fall and the way it's going to lay. That way you can position it in the right areas, especially if you have low density or thin hair. My hair is low density, so my scalp tends to poke through a lot and show. So by styling in the upright position, I can position the hair to cover my scalp so it doesn't look sparse and my scalp isn't showing. If you're applying your products upside down and pulling all your hair forward, it's just gonna fall in your face a lot more and it's harder to cover your scalp, especially in the back. A lot of times you can get like wonky areas in the back when your hair dries. So I recommend doing this upright if you want to try and work with your part. So now for my gel, I'm going to use this one from Dove. This is from the Amplified Textures line. This is the Shine and Moisture Finishing Gel. I know this is a random combo, but sometimes I just pick from products. I made sure these mix well together. This is a very liquidy gel, which is really nice if you have thin hair. Doesn't weigh it down. This does great at giving me long-lasting hold. So I'm just gonna rake all this in and it gives loads of shine too, as you can see. So while I'm applying this, I wanted to mention one thing. If you struggle with your hair staying in the right position or you struggle with it falling into a part that you don't like and it's just stubborn in terms of always wanting to part in a certain area, or if you have a cowlick area or a part that just kind of goes all the way back like mine to where I have to make sure it gets covered in the crown area. So what you can do for that is try curl training. I have a whole video that I did all about what is curl training, does it really work, where I compared a curl training routine side by side with a routine where I didn't use curl training to see if it actually makes a difference, and it did. So in that video you'll see how to do it, but it's basically just where you create little twists all over your head while you're deep conditioning or using a treatment like Olaplex or a bonding treatment. And that can help to force your hair to start to go in a different direction, especially when it kind of gets stuck. Like my part falls right here no matter what, and I can move it. It just takes a lot of training to get it to fall in a different direction because I've always kind of parted it here. But you can move it. So it just takes time to try and like train your hair to go in a different direction. And so that's what curl training does, is it helps encourage your curl definition and encourages your curls to actually create a spiral, which is great if you have damaged hair or hair that struggles to curl up. So you could do that method around on your roots, especially if you wanted to try and train your hair to go backwards. You could do that while you're deep conditioning. That way it will hopefully fall in that same position when you style. And I do notice my hair does that. Okay, so one way that you can really position your hair on your scalp is by applying your products in sections. So that's just where you section off your hair at first, and it gives you more control over how each and every hair is going to lay. However, today I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to create a section on the top half. That way I can show you how to do the parting instead of doing my whole head. And this is gonna help me get just a little bit more volume because I tend to get less volume when I section my whole head because it's just too precise to where I don't get as much volume. So what I'm gonna do is just part my hair about right here You can choose wherever you like, but I just need enough hair to work with, and my hair is low density, so I need to make sure I grab enough hair to actually work with. And then I'm going right below the crown. So the crown area of your head is right where it starts to make this turn downward. So it's like this whole section where your part ends. So I'm actually gonna go below that because I want to actually work on the hair that sits right below it. So a lot of times I will use a handheld mirror like this just to make sure I actually have picked up the hair that I need in the back. So what I'm going to do is comb this hair upwards. So this is a really easy way to get volume when you are styling in the upright position because you're lifting the hair up and away from the scalp, which is ideal. If you style your hair upside down, your hair is definitely going to fall in your face, and if that's something that bothers you like it does me, I don't like my hair in my face all the time, then you don't want to upside down style because you're just pulling all the hair forward and that's how it's going to dry. Even if you flip your head upright and try and do some upright styling, it still is going to be positioned down at the root. So right now, see how my hair goes back like this, like it's actually going backwards, which is what we want, especially if you're trying to go with a no part look. You just want it to kind of flow back instead of everything be pulled forward. And so to still get volume, you can just comb it upright like this. So I'm going to split this into a couple sections. So to get more volume, I think that it helps to actually just have your part go probably like this much, depending on how big your head is. I don't want my part to go all the way to the back. That happens to me a lot. My hair just naturally wants to do that. It wants to go all the way to the back and creates that separation at my crown. So I'm really going to try and just have it stop like right here. So it's like right there on my head. So I'm just going to section off where I want my part to stop. So that's about right there. So see how much hair that I have. So all this hair right here really just needs to go back. So I'm just going to comb it up away from my scalp, but also back. So this is also going to help with scalp covering. So see how that is having my hair go like this, and that also gives me a little bit of root volume right there. And if you want to change the side of your part, then you're going to want to comb your hair in a different direction. So if I wanted to start moving my part on this side, I would just want to comb it this way. That way it's going to lay in this direction. But right now I'm just kind of going up. If you want to get more curl at the root, start your brush right at the root and turn it. And make sure you're going in the natural direction of the curl. So now I'm picking up another horizontal section and I'm just going right at the root, turning my brush to see how the hair is going around the edge of the brush. Okay, now this is where we can do some of the parting. So I don't have much hair to work with. As I said, it is very thin, so I needed all of this hair to go back. That way it covers my scalp, and I can't even tell if I've covered it. Let me look. But because it's kind of wanting to separate in this direction, I'm just going to kind of direct it this way. You can use your hands, but I just find a brush is so much easier to work with to really direct the hair where you want it to go. So now I can kind of scrunch this area to help encourage the curls because we don't want the hair to be just stretched out right there from brushing it. And if you want to get more curls at your root, just scrunch it right there. So the first part that I'm going to show you is just your traditional side part. So some people like to start their side part right at the arch of their brow, whichever side you want. But I don't have much hair to where if I did that deep of a side part, I would barely have any hair over here, and I like it to be a little bit fuller on both sides. So I usually go actually with this part of my brow, or just wherever your hair naturally wants to fall if you are somebody that does a side part. You can also use a rat tail comb like this if you really want to get precise with it, so I'll do that just so you can actually see what I'm doing. So you can start right here, you can start over here, wherever you want. Mine naturally wants to part about right here. So I would recommend maybe doing something diagonal if you want more volume, so you can go like this. Or you could go straight back, but if I do that, then my hair is definitely going to just take its traditional part, which just goes all the way back from here. So I'm just gonna go a little bit diagonal, but right here. So now with this diagonal part going back, so see how it stops right there and the rest is still going back at the crown for that root lift. So in order to make sure the curls are going to actually clump, then you'll want to just start working with these sections. So I'm just going to pick up the rest of the hair that's in the front and just actually define them. So I'm going to create some curl clumps, which actually helps to hold the curls where you want them to lay once they group into clumps like that together. A lot of times too, when you're changing your part, you might notice some stringy pieces because you're pulling hairs in different directions and they might not have like a curl family to group into. So that's why this brush styling helps to kind of group that to where it's not too stringy. Okay, so that is parting number 1. So this is giving me a lot more root lift right here, but it's still giving me a part to where my hair is gonna fall to the side when it's dried instead of falling forward into my face. So the next one that I'm going to show you is pretty much the same thing, but it is a middle part. So people who tend to have very proportional features on their face tend to like a middle part because it just looks good. If you find that you have like one good side and one bad side, then you might like a side part better. Just see what you like best. But so a middle part would go straight in the middle. But we're gonna actually do the same thing where we're only going to go back about to here. This is actually giving me quite a bit of lift because my hair doesn't normally part right here. So if you want to get more volume, I would recommend not having a straight line. You can kind of go zigzag with it, and that will help the hair kind of lay in different directions. But to be able to show you the defined part, I'm just gonna create a straight part. And now I'm just going to pick up these sections and still do the same where I'm creating those curl clumps. So then to get more root lift, you want to scrunch right at the root. So go all the way up to the root when you squeeze. So here is what the middle part looks like. So mine is wanting to kind of split all the way back. So I just have to make sure to keep brushing it back until it dries. So this is a little bit more symmetrical. So with having low density hair, I don't usually recommend this middle part because it can be hard to get good root lift on each side because there's just like this even amount of hair, whereas where it's a little bit to the side, I can get a lot of lift on one side with having more hair over here, which tends to help. So our third part option is a zigzag part, which is actually what I really like to do. So I'm actually going to brush the hair back, and I'm gonna do it from the side. I mean, you could really do it from either direction, and most of the time I don't use a comb. I will just literally position my hair where I want it or wherever I see the curls wanting to fall. Or you can actually take your comb, and you don't even have to do a sharp zigzag. It can even just be pretty subtle, but this can really give you some root volume. So I did a full video on how to get more root lift, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this trick in the video. And then in terms of the curl clumps, I'm going to actually create a curl clump out of this piece here. See how it's going over? So that's going to help hold it into place. And then to get some more lift right here, because this might fall a little flat from where I pulled all that hair over to the other side, I'm just going to pick up a section like this, turn the brush right at the root and go up. And if you wanted to be even more like precise with it, you could do tiny little zigzags, but I just don't think I have enough hair. I think it would just make it kind of fall into one regular part, but I did kind of deep V's on each side. So the fourth part is the no part look, as I mentioned before. So I need to spritz my hair down because it's starting to dry, and as I mentioned, you cannot really part your hair once it's starting to dry. It's just gonna cause frizz if you try and separate curls that are currently clumped together. So as I mentioned, you could just style your hair upside down and pull it all forward, but that tends to get in my face. So here's how you can do a no part look without it falling in your face. So I would still let your hair part just a tiny little bit. So maybe like just this much, just so it's not in your face, and maybe start it right here. So I'm just gonna comb everything back. I want the curls to clump into hairs in that position, so that way they cling and stay that way, or else it's just going to separate again. So after brushing, I usually rake through with my fingers, just so it's not all stretched out. That's how you get stretched out roots, is if you just comb your hair in one direction, especially if you're combing it all forward upside down. That's really stretching out your roots, and you don't want to do that, or else your roots will be way straighter than the rest of your hair. And I'm going to flip my hair over and try and scrunch right here at the root. Then when you flip your head back right side up, you can kind of just let it fall where it wants to fall. And as I mentioned, if it's really trying to separate, just pick up the hair where it's wanting to separate, and then use your brush to create a curl clump that will cause it to cling in the direction you want it to go. So then for this front piece, so I really only have like a 1/2 inch right here that's actually parted. To make sure that doesn't fall in my face, I'm just going to make sure to comb this back. And so then I use the brush to kind of cling that hair against each other so it will stay back. And then on this side, it always wants to curl in, so to get more root lift out of that, twisting it right at the root, and see how much lift that gives. You can also do this in sections if you're really struggling to get it to not make a part. So you can take the back section. I picked up a horizontal section and going back, This is also usually how I cover my scalp in the back. Okay, so now I am gonna check the part in the back, which I'm sure it's trying to separate. As I mentioned, just take your brush and comb it in the other direction. Wherever it's wanting to separate, go in the opposite direction. All right, and that is the no part look that doesn't fall in your face because I still parted these front two pieces. So it's not perfect. Since my hair is low density, it's probably going to separate somewhere at some point, but I'll make sure when I diffuse that I use the diffuser prongs to just lift this hair right at the root and hold it instead of trying to fix it once it's dry. So I've been using the Tangle Teaser brush, but one other trick I wanted to show you to better cover the scalp is use a Be Careful brush. This has boar bristles in it, so the bristles are very close together, so it's not gonna create any separation to show your scalp. So I just use that to kind of go over that area right there to make sure it's fully covered. Because I have been finding that any brushes that have wider space bristles are creating so much separation back there, and I just cannot cover the cowlick in the back. So try the Be Careful brush or something that has very tight bristles, where the bristles are very dense. So that way it actually grabs all of the hairs instead of pulling them together and exposing the scalp. So the part that I'm going to go with before I diffuse my hair is actually a little bit of a zigzag, but also a little bit of a no part, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to kind of zigzag it a little bit, and then I'm going to rake through my hair and let it just fall how it wants to fall. And I don't actually spend a lot of time parting my hair. I just kind of style my hair, but I just wanted to kind of break it down and show you different methods for this video. But usually I don't spend a ton of time on it. I just see where it's gonna fall and then just try and kind of mess it up so it's not too perfect. If you are somebody who only likes to air dry, I would definitely recommend at least using some root clips like these. It's just like a duckbill clip, and you can place them right at your root like that and lift it up, and so that helps direct the hair straight up and lets it dry that way. A lot of times I will also put these in my hair after I finish diffusing, and since my hair is still warm from blow drying it, it does help to kind of set it in place as it cools like that. So once my hair is completely dry, I always shake and fluff out the roots. So you don't want to cause any frizz, so I'm not really touching my hair, I'm just going right on my scalp, so my hand is just sort of massaging my scalp, and that helps lift the hair up off the root. Especially with your styling products, sometimes it can get kind of stuck to your scalp, and that's not what we want. We want it to be lifted. So as you can see, the part pretty much stayed when I diffused. If it didn't, you can always, situate the curls, but I would recommend looking at where the curls are clumped together and try and situate them that way instead of pulling them apart. That can just cause frizz. So to tame some flyaways, I'm just going to take some of my gel and a little bit of water, mix that together, and we're just gonna smooth over the canopy of the hair. I've showed this trick a million times, but it really does help. You can also use a hairspray to tame flyaways. This is really the best that my scalp has been covered in the back, and I think because I picked up that Be Careful brush and used that instead. One more thing I wanted to mention to get more root volume is to make sure you're damp styling versus soaking wet styling. I've talked about this in many of my videos in the past on how to style low density hair, and that is because when your roots are dripping soaking wet, the hair really tends to separate and it can lay a lot flatter, whereas damp styling gives you a lot more volume. So that's why you saw me start off with towel dried hair first at the root, and then I applied my stylers, and I just add water to the links of my hair, but I don't soak my roots. That helps give so much more fullness at the root, which gives you more volume. So now that I'm done styling my hair, you can see how much volume that I have in my hair now that it's dry. You can barely see the part, which is actually what I like, which is hard to do if you have low density hair where the scalp really tends to show. I feel like by doing this kind of partial zigzag, I really hide the part to where it's not as visible. And I definitely have a lot of lift at the crown, which is what I was going for. So I have a couple of other videos that I think are going to be very helpful if you want to check these out after this video. One of them is how to get more volume and lift at the root and avoid that triangle shape. So that's where the top of your head is flat and you have a lot of weight at the bottom of your hair. So there's lots of tips in there. And then I also have one all about how to better cover your scalp. So that's great if you have low density hair. If you are really struggling with your low density hair, I also have one on how to style low density hair that's packed with tips on how to get more fullness, especially at the root. And then finally, I have one all about how to get tighter curls at the root. So if you're really struggling with your roots looking flat and just being straighter compared to the rest of your hair, then you'll want to check out that video. So I will link all of those down below if you want to check them out. I think they will help you out. So if you want to see some photos of differences between these different parting methods and just have a cheat sheet to refer back to when you style your hair, check out the blog that I will have linked in the description box down below. I'm going to link all the products that I used in this video in the description box down below, any of the tools and brushes and things like that as well. So thank you all so much for watching. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, be sure to do so before you go so you don't ever miss a new video, and I hope to see you back next week. Bye everyone.